Yu-Gi-Oh has over thousands of cards in the game, but what if you couldn't use what you wanted? What if you were confined to only opening sealed products? In this series, I'll answer just that. Starting with 3 structure decks and a budget of $80 an episode, I'll attempt to build a complete competitive deck made entirely out of cards I pulled from sealed packs, all with the goal of getting my Yu-Gi-Oh WCQ Invite and going to Nationals. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Sealed Only 2 Fusions. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Sealed Only Fusions. I'm very excited to be continuing Sealed Only on the channel, and this time around we've got a few changes to go over. A while back Nim Nim had started a Sealed Only series where his budget was $80 per episode, and honestly I love that idea. Personally, this means I'll be restricted to uploading 1 episode per month, but I really do feel like it's a lot better this way, as it means we get to pull more cards and open more products each episode. In the last series we would fall into a rut of opening the same sets every episode, just trying to get a single card like Dolka or Ground Zeno, so hopefully the new budget prevents this from happening. In addition to this, we also have to choose a new structure deck to start out with. As I said in the intro, I intend on getting my WCQ Invite in this series, and I think I know what a good starting point is. The Shaddoll Showdown structure deck. I haven't played Shaddoll's Pure in about 3 years, but I do like it and I think it actually has a lot to offer as a backbone for a fusion deck. Though I will say the cheapest way to get this deck right now is $40 each, and it is French without the box. I am not French, so I can't read this, but I know what the cards do, so I should be able to explain along the way while opening this what the cards do. Plus, all of them should be Euro print, which means they're a lot more saturated than usual. So, 3 structure decks, this is just what we're opening for today. You have to start somewhere on a sealed only journey, and this is where we're starting. Now, I will say I'm not just going to make a deck that's not Shaddoll's but has fusion monsters. That's not what I want to do. I want to actually be playing Shaddoll's in some way, shape, or form by the end of the series. But getting into it, we have this little brick of cards. It's honestly always a little hard getting this little plastic off of it. But we have a Gristia named Gristia Marionette de l'Ombre L. Yeah, I am not French and I don't speak French, but that is certainly a name. Here's Gristia. I'm pretty sure it's a summon negate of some sorts. I was never too sure though, because when I was playing Shaddoll's a few years ago, I didn't really play Gristia. I'll make sure to explain what each card does in a deck profile after this opening though. So moving on, we have Apkallone. Okay, this one's one of the best ones. This one's crazy. I love this card. We have Construct. That's amazing. We have Construction Marionette. Yeah, I mean, I guess. That's a really awesome name. Next up, we have... Oh, I guess Winda's near the back. I was expecting Winda. This is Qadshaddoll Keios. Not one of the better ones. We're probably only going to play this at like 1 or 2. We do need light targets to make our construct over here if it could focus. And unfortunately, there aren't that many good light targets in the deck right now outside of this. So we'll take what we can get, but obviously this is not going to stay in the deck. We have a Wendi. Wendi is also a really good card for the deck. This one's probably going to be a 3 of in our first draft. This one sets a Shaddoll from the deck when it's sent to graveyard by card effect, and I forget what its flip effect is. It's a super easy way to get another body on field for your fusion summoning. I love it. It's great. It's a wind attribute, so you can use it for your Apkallone. Really solid card overall. Next up we have Ariel. This one is actually really good this format. Some people are taking a Shaddoll engine in the side deck to be able to go Fusion to Apkallone, send this in Dragon. Dragon can pop a spell trap, and Ariel can banish 3 from graveyard, while Apkallone also permanently negates something on the field. Incredibly good in the format, especially with Snake Eyes Fire King. But next up we have Reshaddoll Incarnation. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. This one's good. Probably going to be playing this at 2 or maybe even just 1. Oh, okay, Winda was very randomly in the middle here. Maybe it's because it was one of the supers, but here we go. Winda, this card, love it or hate it, is pretty good. Basically, it can't be destroyed by our opponent's card effects, and it has an effect that both players can only special once per turn while it's on the field. Kind of broken. It's not the biggest though, so if they use their 1 special summon on Qadshaddoll or Fenrir or the Black Witch, then we might be, you know, in a rough situation, but there are ways to play around it. I'm sure we'll be fine. As long as we draw the out, we draw the out. Moving on, we have Shekanaga. This is also one of the fusions. Not quite sure on the effect. I think it negates something that would summon a monster. It does have the Apocalypse Towers in the artwork. I never noticed that before. That's pretty cool. Next up we have Shaddoll Fusion. This is basically our branded fusion in the deck. This was branded before it was cool. Basically, it's polymerization for a Shaddoll monster, but if our opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, we could use monsters from our deck instead. Really, really solid card. I love this card to death. Seeing it in Europrint in that beautiful saturated green is just so nice. Shaddoll Falcon. Okay, this one isn't the greatest. I'm pretty sure we're going to be playing this at 1. Moving on. Shaddoll Hedgehog, probably going to be a 2 or 3 of. If it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, it will search us another Shaddoll monster. That's very good early on. Definitely going to be playing this in some capacity. Next up, we have Squamata. This one's also important. Pretty sure its flip effect is to destroy a monster, and if it's sent to the graveyard, we send another Shaddoll monster. It might be card. I'm not actually quite sure. I'll have to check it and, you know, explain it more in depth in the deck profile. We're definitely going to be playing this one at 3. This is one of the main ones you want to be playing. Shaddoll Dragon, this is the probably one of that pops a spell trap. Not bad at all. I've always wondered why he has like a beard, kind of goofy looking. These are all based on different cards. I actually wonder what this is based on. If you know, let me know in the comments what Shaddoll Dragon is supposed to be. Next we have Shaddoll Beast. This one's pretty popular thanks to things like Pearly. You would discard this off of any of your spells to get a free draw one, which is always a nice thing. This one's a level 5 though. We can't normal summon it really unless we want to tribute summon it. This is probably just going to be a 1-up for the time being. If I see the need to bump it to 2, I'll bump it to 2. But regardless, I like seeing this card. It's actually named, what is that? Bet Marionette de l'Ombre. It's nice seeing how these cards' names differ in different languages. I actually really do love seeing that. I think it's really neat. But yeah, we have a Shaddoll Hound, I think. Not sure what this one does at all. People don't play it, and probably for good reason. Yo, it's got 1600 defense though. That's pretty huge. It's cracked, man. It's broken. We have a Zephranaga. We are not playing this. I read up on this one before recording this. This one is not good at all. We have a Zephranoyo. That is definitely not the English name for sure. But I also read this one. It's not that good. Ooh, we have a BLS. Let me just move these out of the way. But oh my god, BLS. This probably isn't as good in the week 1 variant I'm going to be building because there's not that many light monsters I'm going to be sending to the graveyard. But nonetheless, this card's a classic. I've been playing a ton of GOAT lately at locals, so I'll probably slot a French version into my deck at some point. Next up. Oh, Lava Golem. Okay, this is something I know for a fact I want to play at 3 in this deck, mostly because A, it's Lava Golem, duh, but B, it's a fire attribute, so we can use it to make Gristia easier. Plus, going second, it's able to easily clear boards, which I love. Oh, Dark Arm Dragon. This is also nice. I don't know if I'm going to be playing this, but I love Edison as well. I should really just make something on Edison for this channel. I don't get to play it as often as I'd like to with me recording every weekend. Edison format is so nice though. I love playing Black Wings. Probably not going to be playing this in this deck though. We have a Fairy Tale Bell, I think. This is not snow, so it's not going in the deck if I'm being honest. A clown trick, I think it's, yeah, Performage Clown Trick, I think that's the name. This is a light. I might play this at 1, but we don't really have things we could do with bodies outside fusioning, so I'm not quite sure what we're gonna do with it right now. Armageddon Knight, that's nice. This is freshly at 2, probably not better than Mathematician, but again, shoutouts to Edison format. Oh, this is a Lightsworn card. Pretty sure this can't be normal summoned or set. It is a tuner though, which is nice. Not that we have any synchro monsters or plan on having any synchro monsters. Nonetheless, it's a really cool card to see. I am actually super excited for the Lightsworn support coming out. Next up, Electromagnetic Turtle. This one's cool, but I'm not playing it. Mathematician. Okay, this one lets us foolish a monster from deck to graveyard, and if it's destroyed by battle, we draw a card. So very basic, but very good card. I like it. It's an earth, so we can make Shekanaga more easily. And yeah, all around good card for the deck, at least in week 1. Kuribandit, probably also going to be playing this. This lets us, in the end phase, tribute it to mill 5, and milling 5 is super nice. Ooh, Shaddoll Fusion. This is a quick play that basically lets us go into a Shaddoll Fusion on our opponent's turn. Super nice to be able to go into like Winda on our opponent's turn, or if we want to go to the battle phase, swing with 2 monsters and then use this to go into more fusions and just swing for more damage total. It definitely helps us push for game in a lot of scenarios. Gonna be playing this at 3 for sure. Super Poly. Oh, this is definitely a card if I've ever seen one. This lets us discard a card to use monsters on either side of the field as fusion material. Incredibly broken, should be banned, but it's at 3. And especially in a deck like Shaddolls where you have a fusion monster for pretty much every attribute, it's just a really, really good card. Definitely going to be at 3 for probably the entire series. Love this card to death, and yeah, there's not much I can say about it. Super Poly, man. Instant fusion, kind of cool. We can summon Winda, and then that's an extra body for a fusion summon, but not the greatest right now, if I'm being honest. Allure of Darkness is also cool, but in a deck that I want to be setting my cards, I don't like my Shaddoll monsters being banished, it's not the greatest right now. Probably good later down the line if I splash in Branded or something like that. Next up we have... oh, Foolish Barrel, that's probably going in the deck. It just foolishes a monster from deck to grave. That didn't quite explain it. It sends a monster. I can't just say it foolishes because, well, that refers to the card I'm trying to explain to you. Yeah, I can see this coming up. It's limited to 1, so I can only play 1. Pot of Avarice might be cool, maybe like as a one-of. Ooh, Twin Twisters. That's actually a really good side deck card. What's its name? Tourbillon's Jumeau? Interesting for sure. This is great back row removal, and it lets us put cards like Reshaddoll Incarnation and Shaddoll Core in our graveyard, which I'm pretty sure is a good thing. Very nice for decks like Labyrinth that you just want to be popping their back row. Shaddoll Core, okay. Yeah, like I was just talking about this. This card's good. You can special summon this as a monster, and I'm pretty sure you can make it any attribute you want. Plus, it's got a really good graveyard effect. I'll be damned if I remember it off the top of my head, though. Love this card. I'm gonna go more into depth in the deck profile with every one of these cards. Sinister Shadow Games is one I know off the top of my head though. Sinister Shadow Games, this lets us send a Shaddoll monster from deck to grave, and then we can flip any amount of our face down defense position monsters up into face up defense position, basically allowing us to control the game state and get a ton of advantage off of just one trap card. Definitely a mandatory 3-up for the time being. Love this card. Lost Wind is probably going in the side deck. This is a good card to be setting going first. It's an imperm, and then if a monster is special summoned to our opponent's side of the field, it can set itself, I believe. This is another good side deck card versus back row decks. This is pay 1,000, target a spell trap card on the field, and destroy it. We have a lot of back row hate in our side deck. Necro Fusion, probably not going to see play, but it is nice to have the option. Shaddoll Wendigo. This is the one that takes a wind, and I remember it being not that great, but I love this when barrier statue was still legal. This was my one out in that format. That was, I hated that card so much. Anotius, I believe. I've totally butchered that one. It's actually right here. Anoyatilis. My bad, y'all. Comment below how much you love my pronunciations of Shaddoll cards. This is the one that takes a water for material, and I believe it has a good effect. I'll be damned if I remember it though. Yeah, moving on, we have our Link monster. This is a polymerization for a Shaddoll monster. It's pretty good, but its requirements are 2 flip monsters. So in this deck, it's pretty easy to make, but we can't make it with our fusions, which is kind of not great because half the fusions want to be sent to the graveyard so you can add back a Shaddoll card. So if you want to link off our Shaddoll monsters, we'll have to find a way to do it. And next up, we are done. Yeah, okay, super good structure deck. I'm gonna crack open 2 of these and try to build a deck with them. I'm really looking forward to using this deck. This has been one of my favorite decks since I got into the game, and I'll see you guys in a moment for the deck profile. Alright, so here is our week 1 Shaddoll deck profile for sealed only. It was getting kind of nice to see the last series deck actually be able to perform and take games, and now we're going to have to start all over again with a brand new deck. I'm excited though. I love this archetype. I haven't played it really like competitively since I was like a noob at competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's going to be a very fun time. But every journey has to start somewhere, and this is where we're starting. So to start us off, we have 3 Shaddoll Squamata. This lets us target a monster on the field and destroy it when it's flipped up, and if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, it foolishes a Shaddoll card. That being an important distinction because that also allows us to send our traps to allow us to flip up our monsters, set them, do all sorts of stuff. It's very good. This is one of our best monsters. Next up, we have 3 Shaddoll Wendi. If it's flipped up, we special summon a Shaddoll from our deck in face up or face down defense position, and if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, it lets us special summon a Shaddoll monster from our deck in face down defense position. This is also one of our greatest pieces at getting putting more bodies on the field, so it's very nice to be playing. It lets us get into things like our other attributes very easily to help us make things like Apkallone a lot easier. Next up, I decided to play 2 Ariel. You need different attributes to make Apkallone, and that's one of our best board breakers right now for the format. Plus, this one is incredibly good in the format as it's entirely graveyard focused with things like Snake Eyes and Snake Eyes Fire King, so I felt like 2 was better than just playing the 1. Next up, we have a card that I don't normally play in Shaddoll decks, but for week 1, this is a light Shaddoll monster that I can make Construct with. Its flip effect actually isn't the worst. It lets us special summon a Shaddoll monster from our hand in face up or face down defense position, and it lets us boost our monsters if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, while also letting us discard a Shaddoll monster for free. Not the greatest card in the world, but it is decent enough that I want to be playing it at 2, and you really want to be able to summon Construct, so you need those light monsters. Next, we have Shaddoll Hedgehog. This one's really nice as its flip effect lets us add a Shaddoll spell trap, and if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, it lets us add a monster instead. Incredibly integral to setting up our recursion with being able to add any piece we need, and with our traps we can flip him face up on our opponent's turn, grab these spell traps, and have some guaranteed follow-up. Next, for the one-ofs, we have Falco. It's not the greatest. It lets us special summon a Shaddoll monster in face down defense position if it's flipped up, and if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, we can special summon it in face down defense position. Next up, we have Dragon. This is a pop for a spell trap, but it also, if it's flipped up, lets us return a card our opponent controls. This is integral for going second against things like Snake Eyes, as we can send it off of our Shaddoll Fusion with something like Ariel to make Apkallone, and then we could pop the Fire King field spell and pretty much wipe their board. Unless they have something like Called By, and if they have it, they have it at that point. With this card, I feel like mandatory at 1, no matter what kind of build we're playing. Next up, we have Beast. It's a draw 1 if it's sent to graveyard by card effect, but if we flip it face up, it lets us draw 2 and discard 1, which is actually incredibly good for getting us out of sticky situations, especially if we drew into a lot of monsters. But that's the Shaddoll monster lineup. It's 15 cards, and I feel like we're gonna see enough of the monsters as is. We do have a few more monsters though. We have 3 Mathemetician, able to foolish any of our Shaddoll monsters, and if it's destroyed by how we draw a card, this includes if we try to crash it into something, which could be very integral if we brick. Next up, we have Kuribandit. This lets us, during the end phase of the turn it was normal summoned, tribute it, excavate the top 5 cards of our deck, add a spell trap that was excavate, and send the rest. Perfect for setting up our graveyard with things like our trap cards, our monsters, pretty much anything you want in the graveyard. This lets us get it. And lastly, for the monsters, we have Lava Golem. I said it while we were going through the deck earlier, but this is a fire attribute. It lets us get into Gristia easier while also being a very powerful board breaker for this format. And yeah, that does it for the monsters. For the traps, we don't really play a lot of them. I decided to just play 3 Sinister Shadow games to help us foolish our monsters and flip them face up. 2 Reshaddoll Incarnation. This is a reborn for our Shaddoll monsters in grave to let us summon them in defense or face down defense. But in the graveyard, we can banish it in 1 Shaddoll card and then activate one of 2 effects. We can either flip a face down monster we control to face up defense, or we could change a face up monster we control to face down defense. This makes it so our flip effects are actually not as slow as they would normally be. So when we put these 2 cards together, we actually have a lot of ways to flip up our cards on our opponent's turn. It's really nice to mill this specifically off of Kuribandit because you really want the graveyard effect and you don't really care that much about reborning. Last, we have Shaddoll Core. This lets us special summon itself as a monster and substitute it as any attribute we need for our fusions. And if it's sent to the graveyard, it adds back a Shaddoll spell trap. So it could add back our Reshaddoll, it could add back any of our fusion spells, and sadly it can't add back our Sinister Shadow games because it's not actually a Shaddoll card. But that does it for the traps. Moving on to these spells, we play 3 Super Poly. You gotta love to see it. I love this card so much. Shaddoll Fusion, this is what makes the deck go round. It's honestly broken as hell. It was the branded fusion before branded fusion. It lets us foolish cards from our deck to the graveyard to summon a Shaddoll Fusion monster, but only if our opponent controls a monster special from the extra deck. Otherwise, it's just polymerization, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but you have to have cards in hand to do that. Next, we have pretty much a quick play polymerization for Shaddolls. I said it before, it's going to help us OTK a lot and summon Winda on our opponent's turn. Very good card. Love it to death. And for the final 2 cards in the deck, I decided to play 1 Foolish Barrel as it gets us into anything we need, and 1 Allure of Darkness for draw power. It's a 40 card list, and while it's not the greatest list in the world, it's what we have going into our tournaments for today's episode. For the extra deck, I maxed out on everything that was good, so I played 3 Winda. This card can't be destroyed by our opponent's card effects, and it is basically a floodgate. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You can only get 1 special summon while the thing's up on the field. Really good for our grindy fusion deck, but really bad for our opponents. If they do summon something like Fenrir, Pancratops, Diabellstar, it does kind of get destroyed. They can just beat over it, but if they don't have it, they don't have it. Next up, I played 3 Construct. Construct. This takes a light and a Shaddoll monster. If it's fusion summoned, you send a Shaddoll card from the deck to the graveyard, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you add back a Shaddoll spell trap, I'm pretty sure. This card on fusion summon allows you to foolish a Shaddoll card from deck to grave, and if it battles an opponent's monster, it just outright destroys it, which is super nice. But if it's sent to the graveyard, you also add back a Shaddoll spell trap. Really good card. I really want to max out on this. This is our main boss monster outside of Winda. And for the last I played 3 Apkallone. This one takes 2 Shaddoll monsters with different attributes, so we played a lot of different attributes just to be able to make this. If it's special summoned, we could target a face-up card on the field and negate its effects, which is super great. Incredible board breaker for going second. And if it's sent to the graveyard, we can add any Shaddoll card from deck to hand and then discard a card, which is insane. Eventually, I want to be sending this thing off of Nadir's Servant to maybe go into some Dogmatica lines, but we'll save that for a future episode. Right now, it's just a pretty good monster to be going into. 2500 attack, you love to see it. And then next for the one of fusions, I played one of each of the good ones. I played one Anoia Tillis. This one's a weird floodgate. Neither player can special summon monsters from the hand or graveyard using spell trap effects. Oddly specific, but not bad at all. And like all the other fusions, if it's sent to the graveyard by card effects, you can just add back a Shaddoll spell trap. There is a Shaddoll fusion for pretty much every purpose. This one takes a water, so you will probably go into this with Ariel, or if somehow we took control of an opponent's monster, like if we were playing against Marincess or we super polyed the Marincess player, then we'll go into this. Next up, I have Gristia. This one takes the opposite. It takes a fire monster. This allows us to negate a summon when our opponent would special summon a monster and then send a Shaddoll monster from a hand to graveyard, pretty much netting us more advantage while keeping our opponent off of their best plays. And then of course, if it's sent to the graveyard, it adds back a Shaddoll spell trap. Next, we have Shekanaga. This one takes an earth monster, and when a special summon monster activates its effect while you have a Shaddoll card in your hand, you can actually negate the activation. So yeah, we actually have a negate for episode 1, which is crazy. Probably gonna be a little hard to summon as our only earth monster is Mathemetician, but it's not bad at all. And like the rest, it adds back a Shaddoll spell trap when sent to the graveyard. And last, we have Wendigo. It's a battle trap, kind of. It lets us target a monster we control, and it can't be destroyed by battle by an opponent's special summon monster, which is kind of weird. It already has high defense. I don't know why you want to try to protect it from battle. Nonetheless, it's okay. It's a super poly target pretty much. And lastly, we play 2 of the link monster. This is basically so we have extra ways to poly, and it allows us to link off pretty much whatever we need to put in the graveyard. But yep, that is the extra deck. Moving on to the side deck, I just kind of threw a bunch of stuff in here. Some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't, so bear with me. We're never siding this in. I just need a 13th, 14th, and 15th card for it. 3 Pot of Avarice for really grindy decks. We need this for decks that we expect to be going to time with. 3 Lost Wind. This is going to be sided and going first over Lava Golem. It's just imperm pretty much that we can recur. And then a bunch of back row hate for the back row decks like Labyrinth. Labyrinth would probably destroy me if I played against Labyrinth, so I don't even want to entertain the thought. But yeah, let's leave with this deck and take it to a locals. As always, we're back at Easy Gaming's Friday Night Locals, the locals of my choice. We had 3 rounds for this episode's locals, and round 1, I was up against my friend Joshua Dice on Centurion. I won the die roll and went first, and luckily for me, I went uninterrupted. I was able to make Winda with Shaddoll Fusion, and since I used Wendi as material, I was able to use her effect to summon Squamata from deck face down. And from here, I set another copy of Shaddoll Fusion and pass. Dice starts his turn with Bonfire to search Trudea, which he proceeds to normal summon. Trudea's effect triggers, putting herself and Primera face up in the spell trap zone as traps. On resolution, Dice activates Primera's effect to special itself, so I decide this is my best chance to use Shaddoll Fusion, using Ariel and Squamata to make Apkallone. On summon, Primera activates to add a Centurion card, and I stack my Chainlinks as Chainlink 1 Squamata to send a Shaddoll card, Apkallone Chainlink 2 to negate Primera, and Ariel Chainlink 3 to banish Bonfire. Resolving backwards, Primera gets negated, and Squamata sends Beast, which draws me a card. Now, you may think this is a good position to be in. He's already used his only special summon and basically can't do much else. Well, it turns out that Dice can do something. Dice can set 3 cards and pass. Plus, since this is 3 structure decks, it's pretty hard to OTK. So on his next turn, he uses Phalanx to banish my Winda until my next standby phase, and he's able to establish enough recursion to outgrind me and take game 1. Game 2, I go full combo, which in our case is setting 3, normal summoning Kuribandit, and going to the end phase where Kuribandit can activate, milling Shaddoll Shaddoll Fusion, Unending Nightmare, Foolish Burial, Dragon, and Wendi. I add Shaddoll off of the Kuribandit mill and activate Wendi's effect to set Beast from deck. Now since I got some good mills, I can fire off the Shaddoll in the end phase, sending Beast and Squamata to make Winda, with Beast drawing me a card and Squamata sending Hedgehog, which adds me Ariel. Dice starts his turn by activating the Centurion field spell, but I chain Unending Nightmare, paying 1000 life points to destroy it. Unending Nightmare is actually a really good card in this matchup because it's not once per turn, so when he activates a second copy of the field spell, I can just chain Unending Nightmare again to destroy it. To make matters worse for him, when he normal summons Trudea, I chain Shaddoll to make Apkallone and negate it. He did end up having triple tactics to try to draw himself into more resources, but he scoops soon after. Game 3, Dice goes first and hits me with what will probably be the main villain to our Shaddoll deck this season. Thankfully, we're a control deck, so I don't mind waiting another turn to play the game. I set 2 cards and a monster, and I do end up living his next turn, but Dice drops another Dastardly card I hope to not see that much this season. While I hate getting hit with D-Barrier, I was still in an okay place to play it out until he hit me with the second D-Barrier a few turns later. Sometimes it's just not your match, but honestly it was really fun regardless, and it showed how versatile the deck can be if you play it right. Plus I hadn't played against the main man Dice in a while, so good games to Dice. Round 2, I was up against someone I haven't played before, and I'm really awful at names, so if I'm being real, I forgot his, so I'll just call him John. Anyways, John was on Trap Tricks. I knew he was on this deck because I saw him playing it against someone else, so I was really dreading this matchup when I sat down. But surprisingly, it was not as bad as I thought it'd be. Game 1, he went first and ended on a board of 2 back row and 2 monsters. Since he had exactly 2 monsters, I wasn't going to let the opportunity to Lava Golem him go to waste. And thanks to a good hand, good top decks, and Super Poly to out the Lava Golem, I was able to take game 1. Game 2 was about the same. I didn't have Lava Golem, but my hand was good enough to grind it out, and the deciding factor was another late game Super Poly. Good games to John. Round 3, we were up against Clayton. We played him a lot last season, and normally he's on Speedroid, which I was expecting. However, he ended up being on Marincess. He won the die roll, unfortunately, and went first, ending on a board of Aqua Argonaut, the Ice Shade Synchro, and a set card. Plus, he had Wave in hand. My hand was mostly monsters, which is terrible going second in a matchup like this. And while I did have a copy of Shaddoll Fusion, it was not enough to push through this board, so I ended up losing game 1. Game 2, I went first and saw the exact opposite happen, a handful of trap cards. I set 4 and pass. In his draw phase, I fire off Sinister Shadow Games to send Wendi, which sets Squamata from deck. I did it in the draw phase because I didn't want him to play into triple tactics. This ended up not being the right decision, as the first thing he does is say this. Getting even lead is super unfortunate under the circumstances, but I think it would have been fine if I had just waited with the Sinister Shadow Games. It's all about trying to anticipate what you think your opponent sided in for the matchup, and while Clayton might have been on triple tactics, evenly is what I should have been playing around. This is good to know for the future, but this mistake lost me the game. Good games to Clayton. Now, X2 is not a bad record at all for the first episode of the series, and I'm honestly surprised I was even able to take a match with Shaddolls in 2024. The deck has some really solid tools to work with, and it basically acts as a skeleton for our future competitive fusion deck. I'm still undecided on what direction the deck will eventually end up taking, but I know a few things that would be amazing to pull to upgrade the deck. So if you enjoyed the premiere of sealed only fusions, make sure to subscribe. I'm trying to upload twice a week now, so your support would mean the world to me. And I know I've been talking about wanting to hit 1,000 subs for a very long time, and we recently hit it last Friday. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for 1,000 subs. I'm really excited to keep uploading YouTube videos, and this is only the beginning. So once again, thank you. But with that, my name is Gokuzemi, and I'll see you guys next time for a brand new episode of Sealed Only Fusions. See ya!